The pulse detonator in the human's grip did not burn with the angry red of an explosive trigger. From the metal cylinder flashed a rhythmic, steady green light. A massive data uplink, not a bomb. Center stage in the absolute darkness of the Zenith Spire arena, Elias Thorne stood perfectly still. 90,000 spectators choked on their own silence. Directly at High Lady Vespera's royal box, he stared. What would you do if the most dangerous being alive was locked inside your fortress? Would you watch him burn, or realize you just handed him the match? The reinforced glass of that private box had been pristine 4 days earlier. Down in the maximum security isolation blocks, Thorne had sat chained to a containment slab, a physically unremarkable specimen. Against the heavy iron bulkheads, his bare knuckles tapped in a slow, discordant sequence. Faint ink marred his right wrist. A skull enclosed by 13 crude stars. The meaningless gang brand Vespera had scoffed at. Into the sun-scorched dust of the gauntlet, her guards marched him. 7 days of bloodsport lay ahead. From the release gates slithered 3 bioengineered shadow stalkers. Needle teeth snapping, acid dripping from barbed tails. Vespera watched from her high seat, expecting a brief execution. Instead, the human moved with unnatural economy. Flashed a discarded bone blade. Severed tendons. Punctured nerve clusters. 3 massive beasts collapsed into twitching heaps before the crowd could draw breath. Other surviving prisoners huddled in the center rings. Fragile Silic monks. Broken Chitin kin legionaries. Among them, Thorne moved in absolute silence. A swift hand gesture here. A pointed direction there. Into a tight tactical wedge, he organized the desperate mob, positioning them far away from the eastern wall. Against the cold, crystalline railing, Vespera tapped her ceremonial metallic rings. Twice. A sharp, impatient rhythm. The human was surviving, but his subsequent actions baffled her. Over the next hour, Thorne dragged the heavy, armored carcasses toward the arena boundary. Meticulously, he stacked them. A sloping mound of dead meat and chitin pressed against the spire's primary foundational pillar. A primitive trophy display, the savage claiming territory with rotting flesh. Her upper lip curled in disgust. Behind her, the heavy doors of the royal suite hissed open. Kalen, captain of the elite guard, marched forward. His pale blue skin flushed with agitation. A secured data slate trembled in his grip. The Vanguard, 9 designation, her military advisors had flagged during initial processing. Vespera had ignored them. A single human could not threaten the hegemony. High Lady, Kalen rasped, presenting the slate. High Command decryption finished. Speak, she commanded, not breaking eye contact with the arena floor. He is not a stray combatant. The 13 stars, it is a planetary kill count. Down in the dust, Thorne finished his grisly architecture. He wiped a smear of purple blood from his cheek. Then, he deliberately walked into the deep shadow of the beast mound, pressing his back against the thickest layer of chitin armor. Execute the atmospheric scrubbers, Vespera ordered, her rings clinking against the glass again. Suffocate him. We cannot, Kalen choked out. The primary network is locked. Down on the arena floor, the primary security gates groaned open. 30 elite chitin-kin legionaries flooded the blood-stained sand, their thermal lances raised and locked onto the lone figure. Drop the device. Kalen roared through the stadium's magnification system. From the center of the ring, Thorne did not flinch. You are standing on a pressurized micromine grid, the human stated, his flat voice carrying clearly through the open comm channels. I wired the sand 40 minutes ago. Above the arena floor, Vespera stared at her trembling tactical readouts. Structural alarms flared a sudden, violent red along the eastern wall. The rhythmic tapping in the isolation block flooded back into her mind. Not a nervous tick. He had been mapping the acoustic resonance of the Zenith Spire's foundational columns, and that towering mound of rotting predator flesh against the wall. Not a primitive trophy display. A dense, biological blast baffle designed to direct an explosive shockwave in one precise direction. A bead of cold condensation slipped down the side of Vespera's crystalline wine flute. It dripped quietly onto her ceremonial silk robes. Irritated by the blemish, She retrieved a cloth from her sleeve and methodically dabbed the moisture away. Fell the darkness over the zenith spire. Total grid failure swallowed the screaming crowd. Center stage in the absolute blackness, Elias Thorne stood perfectly still. From the metal cylinder in his grip flashed that rhythmic, steady green light. The massive data uplink. Shielded military networks require immense brute force to penetrate. Through the spire's hijacked structural telemetry arrays, Thorne rerouted the arena's entire atmospheric power draw into a single, localized broadcast spike. The encrypted Vanguard, 9 files, carrying decades of buried imperial atrocities, ripped through the hegemony's planetary firewalls like paper. Beside the High Lady in the pitch-black viewing box, a heavy metallic clatter echoed. Kalen's halberd hit the floor. The guard captain fell to his knees, his massive shoulders shaking. Across his visor HUD scrolled the unredacted planetary logs of his own home colony. Not a natural seismic event, the files proved. A localized orbital strike ordered directly by the throne to cull a striking workforce. Against the eastern wall, the hidden charges detonated. The biological blast baffle caught the inferno, directing the subterranean explosion entirely upward into the spire's core network trunk. Sand turned instantly to glass. The localized shockwave severed the spire's internal override cables, locking the Vanguard, 9 broadcast loop permanently into every relay across 1,000 star systems. The screech of collapsing metal faded, replaced years later by the low, steady hum of a civilian ventilation unit. Gray-haired and wrapped in a simple wool shawl, Vespera graded historical datapads in an empty classroom. Afternoon sunlight caught the chalk dust suspended in the quiet air. Outside the window, a free planetary market buzzed where the hegemony's recruitment center used to stand. A shadow fell across the doorway. A young human woman stepped inside the room. Without speaking a single word, she walked to the desk. Upon the scratched wooden surface, she placed a tarnished metal drive. Faintly etched into the casing was a skull enclosed by 13 stars.